Well, good morning, Transplant Helper community. My name is Jim Merle, and I'm actually out here in kind of an outbuilding slash storage slash wood shop that I have in the backyard. And I chose to be here today in this particular place because I thought it was kind of nice. I wanted to come out here and relax a little bit. In addition to that, with the 5 children at home, all of which are right outside this window playing, it was a little bit easier to kind of escape in here and to sit down and talk with you for just a few moments today. Now, what I wanted to do was go back over yesterday's April 1st or April Fool's list with you, where I shared with you about 7 things that I said were all true. Of course, admitting at the end of that some of those were not actually true, and you were supposed to determine as a viewer which one were true and which one were lies. Now, that could have been pretty difficult because, as a matter of fact, many of those were actually kind of part truths and part lies, if there's such a thing. I think really a partial truth is an altogether lie most of the time, but I shared with you some things that had a little bit of truth in them, but there was a level to most of those that actually was not exactly accurate, if you will. But I wanted to go back through the list really quickly, share with you those things, and try to let you compare up with me as to how you did on that particular kind of true and false quiz. And so the first one that I made mention of was the fact that I actually sleep upside down in the bed the majority of the time. That's not really true. It is true that we do have an adjustable bed, so you can either adjust the head or the feet up, and my wife does like to sleep, preferably with the feet up, which sometimes I'm okay with. Most of the time that can get kind of aggravating. So I have threatened to turn around and sleep upside down in the bed just so my head will be up, but I haven't actually done that. So that one, I guess you'd say, is an altogether lie. However, there are many nights I wish that were the case. So that's a lie, and most of you got that one right. You understood I don't sleep upside down in a bed, at least the majority of the time. So number 2, I made mention of the fact that I had never had long hair. Now that's actually true. I've never had actual long hair, at least the way some people would describe it, hair that comes down to the shoulders, that sort of thing, covers the nose or anything. I've never had that. However, I, for about the last 30 years, have worn a haircut similar to this. Most of the time it was actually a flat top. Then it kind of went to this crew cutty, styly looking thing, which I don't usually style, but I try to comb it over. But I have never had actual long hair, but there was a period in my teenage years when I kind of had the bowl cut with a little bit that kind of hangs over the eyebrow, kind of the skateboard look. I did have that. So I had longer hair, but for about 30 years, it hasn't changed an awful lot. So for the majority of my life, no, I've never had long hair. And those of you who guessed that to be true, you were right. You got that one absolutely. Number 3, I made mention of the fact that I used to be a football star, was very athletic. That one is not actually true. Some of you picked that out immediately. You said, no, wait a minute, you're a congenital patient, so you could not have been a football star. That's right. I was actually told by my doctors very early on as a child that I would not be able to play organized sports. I did play 1 year of t-ball, and that was a terrible season. We had 10 games. We lost 10 games. I struck out every single time except for the very, very last hit in the very, very last game, and I was always the last hitter because they knew I wasn't any good. But I actually hit a foul ball that time. And it was bad foul, but it didn't matter. I was a kid. I ran those bases. And I think some people cheered for me. Others were pretty aggravated by that. But I was not that athletic as a child. Now, as I grew older and I began to take advantage of the fact that I knew if I was going to live life, I was going to have to get in shape and be somewhat athletic, I started to actually get into shape. I started working out a little bit in the gym. Started participating against doctor's orders with some of the other kids when they were running those miles and stuff like we used to run in PE. Started doing some of that, and that actually helped me out a lot, to the point and to the extent that as a 9th through 12th grader, I was actually a part of the football team, in the fact that I was first a ball boy, later what they called a manager, and finally a trainer. And I enjoyed practice. So when the guys were out practicing and stuff, especially when they would run sprints at the end, I would often run with them. And it is true that I was one of the fastest players on the whole team. Even though I wasn't actually able to play, when we would run wind sprints, I could generally outrun anybody on the field, save 1 or 2. So yeah, I was pretty athletic, but certainly not a football star by any means. Number 4, I told you that I oftentimes paint my toenails, and most of you said that can't be true. This guy, he's a manly man, he doesn't paint his toenails. Actually, my toenails have been painted a number of times in my life, and that comes down to what some of you guessed was because I have 5 children, 4 of them being daughters. There have been several times when I've let them paint my toenails just to be a good daddy. As a matter of fact, there was one time years ago Well, my oldest daughter at the time, I think she was probably 8, 9, 10 years old, she painted my toenails. And for whatever reason, paint tends to stick to my nails extremely good. You ladies would be jealous. I mean, normally you paint your nails within a few days, it's chipping or fading or growing or something. I don't know how that works, but she painted my toenails, and there were months, I forget, it was like 4, 5, 6 months. The paint had not even chipped. It was in perfect shape, and we actually went on vacation, got to the hotel or wherever we were staying, the condo, whatever, and I walked down to the pool that day in flip-flops and looked down and realized my nails were still painted. So I was kind of embarrassed by that, but hey, I think most people could kind of understand once they saw my children running around, that sort of thing. But I actually had that moment. Had another moment when I was going in for some x-rays one time. I actually slipped on some ice and broke a bone in my leg and my wrist. Went in for some x-rays, and of course they asked me to take off my shoes and socks so they could make the x-rays. And that's when the girls noticed my toenails were painted. One of them asked about it. I told them, and they ended up going and getting some of the other techs and the nurses and bringing them in the room and saying, check this guy out. He's got to be the most awesome dad ever. He's got his toenails painted. I think that was all the same painting, but that's the kind of paint that would stick to me. And nonetheless, I have had my toenails painted before. Being that my daughters are now, my youngest ones are 5, 4, and 3, I expect that's coming in the future. So if you guessed truth on that, you got it. If you guessed false, it's true, folks. I've done it and probably will do it again. Number 5, I made the statement that one time in high school, as a senior, I think it was, I was voted as having the sexiest legs in Montford High School. That is absolutely true. One person even pointed out, I think it was Linda, pointed out and said, you couldn't make that stuff up. And I didn't. I did not make that up. I was voted as having the sexiest legs in my high school, just as I described, with the jars outside of the lunchroom, drop the money in to vote. Kind of a blind vote. They didn't know whose legs they were, but I actually, for whatever reason, have humongous calf muscles. I'll try to pop a picture in a few minutes, maybe here, to show you, but I have humongous calf muscles. Even though I've had bird legs all my life, I'm extremely muscular in my lower body, and I've worked really hard for that. I've told you before, that actually helped me post-transplant because I always kept my legs, and I was able to get up and move quickly after surgery. But I do have pretty good looking legs if you look from the knees down. My knees are knobby, but after that, yeah, for the most part, I think I do. They did vote me as the sexiest legs in the whole high school back then. And so I think most of you thought that was a lie, but that was truth. And that was absolutely true. And I'm actually pretty proud of that. It's probably one of my biggest accomplishments ever as far as that goes. Number 6, I can't keep my hand in the camera here. Number 6, I said I'm dyslexic and have a really hard time reading. Even maybe I said I could barely read. That's true. I am dyslexic. I've struggled all of my life with having difficulty spelling and or reading. Of course, those two kind of go hand in hand. But I've had a lot of trouble with that in my life, and wasn't really sure growing up what the problem was. As my mama used to say, that she had to, quote, beat the spelling words in me. She didn't beat me, by the way, but I got a few whippings because of that. But anyway, did have a lot of trouble as a child. Finally, as an adult, when my son was being diagnosed with dyslexia, we realized then that I was dyslexic as well. And I have always had a problem reading. I cannot comprehend long sections of anything because I just don't get it. So I've worked through it through the years, and I've actually made it one of my strengths because I actually focus a lot when I read. I'm really, really intensive. I go back over things over and over, so I catch some details sometimes that others don't. But probably most of you noticed if I ever post a tweet, type, whatever, send you a message back, it's going to be broken English because I just don't see the errors in there until it's already sent. And maybe I wake up the next day, or maybe my wife or somebody points out and says, hey, what is this word? I don't know, but I am dyslexic and I have struggled all my life. But those of you who guessed that, you probably watched the program a lot. You already knew that, but thank you for pointing that one out. And then number 7 here, if I can put this in here, number 7, I made the statement that I could swallow up to 40 pills at one time. That is probably true, but I've never tried it. Actually, I think my record is like 26 pills, and that's because back early on, I took 26 pills in my morning dose, and I got sick of popping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'd grab the whole 26, put them in my mouth and swallow them. I can swallow that with very minimal water. I've even done it on a challenge to just swallow the dry pills, all 26 at one time, with absolute ease. I don't recommend that. You should always drink with that. That helps to, digest and break things down. But I can do it anyway. And I honestly believe I could do the 40. I don't plan on trying because I can't think of 40 pills I could take and it'd be safe right now because I just don't need that much medicine. But yeah, so if you said I can do that, it hasn't been proven yet, at least. I don't know if that's a truth or a lie, either one. But anyway, some of you went back and commented below the video, told me some things about yourself. I plan to reply back to those later today and try to guess which ones of yours were truth versus lies. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. I hope you're having a good day. I know we're in a difficult spot right now with this lockdown situation. It's kind of getting worse as far as the amount of time we're supposed to be locked into our homes. So it's getting a little more difficult, but please know I'm praying for you. I'm wishing you the very, very best on that. And again, thank you for joining me. And if you ever need anything at all, please reach out. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. And thanks for having a little fun with me today and on yesterday. I look forward to being with you many, many times in the near future. Stay stronger, friends.